Loud. Well, good evening, everybody. Here we are again. It is Wednesday evening. It is time for Advanced Programming with Java here at Portland State University. So let's see here. People are still joining, and I'm letting them in. We've got a couple of things to cover tonight. First of all, I need to get some light on my face. There we go. This will work better. A little bit better. So our primary focus tonight is going to be our first pair programming exercise. And this is a grand experiment in remote learning here at Portland State University. And we're going to be using a lot of Zoom breakout rooms. We're going to give it a try, see how it works. Before then, I want to start off with some Prime Minister's questions, talk about how the week's been going, and then I'll also describe Project 3, and then we'll spend the remainder of the time working in pairs. So, seen a couple of things that have come across the chat, but I'd like to open it up for anybody that has a question. I'll open up the discussion, so please feel free to raise your hand, and I'll call on you. Anything that you'd like to share about questions you might have about projects 1 or 2, or anything in particular that you learned this week that you're still wondering about? Mark, yes, thanks for raising your hand.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question regarding the code coverage stuff. When trying to submit project 1, I had some discrepancies. At least, it reported that it passed and it was fine, so I submitted it. But when I went to look at the code coverage reports that came out of the Jacoco, I guess I challenged some of what it thought it didn't cover because I know they had to have been covered. And so is there a certain, like, is it only testing the code coverages for non-test functions, or how is it actually done?
Well, and it's something that I've seen too. We saw a little bit of it. Maybe it was the office hours, but is interesting. Some branches that I know I've got a unit test for don't show up as covered. And maybe it's because what I'm measuring is instruction coverage, and I don't know if there was a different way to do line coverage. But if you did you run with a $P greater option to Maven, and did it pass?
I did, and yes, it did. Where it seemed like it was not exercising or didn't count as a hit for it was functions that simply did a return with some function return value. Like it was literally a one-line statement, just return with this something, and it didn't. It highlighted it as though it didn't cover it, but obviously it had to have because that's how member variables were returned. So I know it was done. It was just frustrating.
Yeah, that is a little unfortunate. So yeah, I mean, I think for better or for worse, the thing that determines your grade is the coverage overall, and it's what Maven says. And so then I don't know what additional advice to give. So maybe that maybe there's an issue with Jacoco, or that it's not tying the bytecode back to the line, the source line correctly.
I was wondering about if can you customize tell it to ignore certain types of things? Because I noticed that it would mark like IntelliJ would mark comments, etc. as untested. I'm like,
oh,
and
well, and that's
lines.
true. But that's why I measure instructions and not just lines. Although I'm pretty sure it's smart enough to know that things like method declarations and comments don't count as lines of code.
Right.
And so then I have to admit I haven't looked at the Jacoco configuration options for a while, so I don't know if there's a better way that we could be measuring a way that would more accurately create reports that demonstrate what is and what is not covered. Let's see here. Alex, thanks for waiting. You had your hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I was just curious about the, so on the submission program, there was an option for -savejar.
Yeah.
And I was curious, is that for us to be able to kind of test what we submitted?
Yeah. So the way the submission program works, the submit program works, is that you give it a directory. It goes and finds all of the files that can be submitted underneath that directory, puts them all into a jar file, and then emails the jar file to the grader. The save jar is for debugging in case something has gone wrong. It's been a long time since anything since had to use it, but I've always had it there. That way you can keep the jar file around in case there was some question about what did get submitted or what was what was or was not in
Okay.
it.
Yeah, so I used that option, and when I tried to like run because it saves another jar file into the target folder, and I
Into the
was,
target folder?
or not into the target, but into like,
The current working
uh,
directory?
yeah, and
Okay.
then so I tried running that, and then I ran into some errors, like it wouldn't recognize the abstract classes. So,
Yep.
but when I was running like the other versions, it was okay. So I was just curious, should I worry about that?
No, you shouldn't. Did you happen to break open the jar file to see what was in it?
I think it probably only, I didn't take a look, but I'm guessing it only had like the things that we submitted, right? So it probably
Which
wouldn't be able
are
to run.
source files, right? So
Yeah.
nothing has been compiled, right? So I don't want big huge binaries being emailed to the graders just for the source files. And so yes, I mean if you tried to do then like a Java dash jar and then point at that jar file, there aren't any classes in it, and that's why it didn't work. But I mean
Okay.
that was smart of you to go explore that. I'm glad you were curious.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I know there was quite a bit of discussion this afternoon. I saw lots of notifications on my phone about Slack. Sorry, I couldn't get to all of them. It was in meetings, and I had that uh, uh, Portland State internship meeting right before this. What are people's experiences on Project One? As a matter of fact, if people still have open questions about Project One, um, I'm happy to answer some of them now. So, Devyani, go ahead.
Actually, my program ran fine on my local, and on Linux machine it worked well with Maven Verify. But when I ran pgrader, it gave me an error. So, but it was already 5 by then, so I submitted. I don't know like if I should be worried about that because on IntelliJ, I tested my test coverage and
Mm-hmm.
it was like pretty good. So I don't know.
And did it fail when it was dash p grader? Did it fail because it said it didn't have enough code coverage, or was there another reason that it failed?
No, there was another reason. It
Oh.
said like I guess there was some issue with Maven version or something like that. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry. There are a couple people that ran across this, and there was some discussion on Slack, but it was easy to get lost in all the discussion. So, um, the the reason that we have the Maven wrapper, the MVMW script, is what that does is that will download the right version of Maven and use that to build your project. And that's why I've been encouraging all of you to use that wrapper script. However, if you went back and looked at the lecture, which is pretty old by now, if you went back and excuse me, and probably even saw me do it, I instinctively just say Maven the command. This is a problem on the CS Department's Linux machines because their version of Maven is slightly older than the one that I'm using in the projects. I thought I had done some work to basically go back and use that same version. If you're getting complaints about the version of Maven is too old, it's saying something like, "Hey, I expected it to be 3.61, but it's only 3.60." It's probably because you're not using the Maven wrapper. So how about you take a minute now and try using the Maven wrapper to build your project, and it should pass.
when I got that error, I remember running Maven Verify after that. But even after that, I got that error. But yeah, let me try that again.
Yeah, it's the Maven W. I think that'll make the difference there if it's complaining about the other versions. Okay. Oh, looks like there's some chat going by too. Well, let's see here. What do we Some other questions here. Let's see here. Do we have to implement the get start time string and get end time string for this project? Project 1 assignment said to ignore it for now. Actually, the project 1 assignment said to ignore the get start time and get end time, so not the string ones. Not sure how you implemented the project, but those. But yeah, the intent was that the methods that end in string were supposed to be implemented. However, if you were able to get your program to work, and I'm surprised that it would, perhaps you didn't call the toString on the phone call. I'm not gonna look at your code, so it should be okay. Oh, and somebody already explained that. Thank you, Seth.
Can I ask you a question just about general submissions?
Yeah.
So I noticed in Slack, people were saying when they submitted their project, they got no email reply. And then I noticed that with quiz 1. I logged on at a later time, actually about 5 minutes ago, and I had submitted it, but then it about 5 minutes ago I saw, and it had said that it was like it was just like still in progress. Is there like a D2L thing going on?
I'm not aware that there is. The submission and D2L are two completely different systems. Has anybody else noticed issues with D2L? Well, I mean, so were you able to submit your quiz?
I mean, I guess no. When I hit submit, I just moved on, and
Is there like a 2-step process or something? I have to admit I don't take quizzes in D2L, so I don't know what the user experience is like.
Yeah, there very well could be. Sorry, I'll just email you about it.
There is. You hit submit, and then you got to scroll to the bottom and then say okay, I think.
Oh, that's weak.
Because, yeah, it says like, how many of the different questions you get points for. And then it says like 0 out of, however many.
Okay, that could have just been user error then. I don't know what happened, but okay. Never mind, sorry.
Okay. Well, no. Good question. You might not be the only person who's done that. I know in years past, I've had a number of students that say, or I'll see that they spent like 27 hours working on the quiz. It's like, well, that doesn't sound right. So
right,
thank you for bringing it up. And so it looks like I just gotta, I guess, click extra submit once more with feeling, in order to get it going.
Okay, I can just send you an email about that, I guess.
Yes. Okay. Question: when will we get grades and feedback? Let's see here. I believe for quiz 1, the graders said they were going to grade it on Sunday. I never closed the loop with them to figure out. Have the quiz 1 grades been released yet? Has anybody looked in detail?
Yeah, I have a grade.
Okay. So it looks like quiz 1's been graded. The projects, I'll have them graded over the weekend, I think. So, and then, so I'd like them, to get them the grades back to you by like noon on Monday. But I haven't worked that out exactly with the graders yet, since it was just due today.
Speaking of that one specifically, is there a way to get feedback just whether the submissions were intact and in a gradable state, just to assure us, like as we're getting ready to submit the next ones?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Making sure that the process worked.
Yeah. So here's what I'm usually the one that runs the grading scripts, and if something blows up there, I'll know about it. So I'll take a quick look at the output. And yeah, if anybody had code that didn't compile, or if it was obvious that you did something wrong with the command line and every single one of your tests failed, I'll give you an early heads up, because I don't want to waste a grader's time with submissions that are essentially broken. So then I'll reach out to you that way.
Speaking of command line, I had a quick question.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to be I am going to be handing mine in a day late, so I have a few things I'm still working on. But this was discussed in Slack, so I got an error when I was trying to run it from the school servers command line. Could not find or load main class in edu.pdx.cs410j .username or .my username. Somebody in Slack said when they had that problem that they had that problem in IntelliJ, and there was a setting you had to change a configuration to a valid folder in IntelliJ, but it works fine inside IntelliJ. I just can't get it to work from the command line on either PowerShell or the school server.
And this is while you're running one of your integration tests?
This is just trying to run it from basically run, the project one main, basically.
So if you say java-jar and then give it the phone bill jar that you created, that?
I was trying to run, maybe I was probably doing something wrong with that, but I was just trying to run just the main thing.
How?
So by typing java space edu.pdx.cs410j.myusername.project1.
Okay, so when you do that, you haven't set the class path. So you need to have a -cp. But remember, if you go back to the assignment, the way I recommend that you run the main method is by using java-jar and then giving it the location of the jar file. And what that will do is it'll execute it against the fat jar, the uber jar that has all the dependencies mixed in.
Okay.
And that'll set your class. Basically, everything will be on the class path if you do it that way.
Okay, when I was trying to do this just now, I definitely skipped over that part again, the jar part. Okay.
You can give it a try and let us know if it doesn't work.
Will do. One sec.
Yep. A comment here in the chat. Testing file I/O is pretty annoying, smiley face. Anybody care to expand on that? What are some of the things that you found that are annoying with testing file I/O?
I think it's not too bad in Java.
How so? What have you found to be either easier or more intuitive than in other languages?
I don't know. It seems like you have your file reader, your input reader, or something like that, and then you feed things to it. Similar to C, but I think your overall printing mechanisms are just a little simpler.
Anybody missing the overloaded shift operator with the two less than symbols to put stuff to stand it out? No. I don't know. I still make fun of C++ for that. I mean, it's like, I get it, but really. Oh, good. Thanks for some of this feedback on how you thought of Project 1. Intimidating, somewhat time-consuming, but in the end, it went quicker than I expected. Tons of lines of error checking those date-time strings, but it's all working. Good, and hopefully that was done with unit tests. Some other things. I saw that there was some regards to the CS department's Linux machines. Did they upgrade Maven to 3.6.1? Is that how? I know there's people who reached out to the cat.
I heard they updated the CUDA.
Okay, let's see here. D2L. Yes, and again with D2L, I guess I must have things configured the wrong way, because after you take the quiz, it's like, oh yeah, here's your grade, it's 0, and everybody's like, what the hell? And it's like, no, sorry, this hasn't been graded yet. But I'm glad things did go through. There's people saying yes. Some people miss operator overloading in general. I don't know. Uh-oh, now I've started a war between everybody's favorite programming language. Sorry. Nice. Okay, cool. Good. Someone's learned an important lesson about unit testing that saves in debugging time. That's what I've always found to be true. Excellent. Okay. Are there any other questions on people's minds about anything we've covered so far in class, any of the projects, anything like that? What was late policy again? Okay, so you have 2 late days to use throughout the term. And so then any assignment that is turned in, well, now, it starts the clock on the late day, and that'll be one late day, and then for the and then if you turn something in 2 days after it's due, well, that's your second late day. We're getting off kind of a rocky start, and so then I think what's most important is that people get their stuff in. And so then let's get stuff working. Let's get people feedback, and I want to make sure that people feel that they can, that they will get feedback and that they will get grades. So I'm curious how harsh the graders are. So am I. It's new graders. I think experience has been that the test cases are pretty black and white. So either they work or they don't. Maybe some of the error messages, there might be some flexibility there, but we'll see. I've, like I said, I haven't really sat down with the graders yet to ask them to grade, and so I'll set some expectations there. But the nice thing is that this is the first project, and so then if we need to adjust our expectations in terms of how the grades are computed, or how harsh or unharsh the grading is, we can do that. Okay, can you walk through how they grade, i.e. dump our source into their test.java files or use ours? Neither. So what I do is, these are command line applications, and so then I send a series of command lines to your programs, and I ask the graders to assess the output of your program based on the input. So for instance, like some of those error scenarios that I called out in the assignment, hey, if you have if the test script gives your program a malformed phone number, I expect there to be a reasonably understandable error message to that effect. And so while I will run, I do have the script run your entire test suite, your unit tests and your integration tests. I only do that for the purposes of code coverage. I don't necessarily look at what is being tested, but it means that all of your tests must be present and they must be passing. Lawrence?
Just a quick question. So I realized after I submitted that I had left on like one of my output prints. So it's not optionally printing when you, if you give it a print parameter, it's going to print twice, but it's also going to print once anyways. It's not, is that really worth like commenting out one line and resubmitting, or is it probably not going to be judged that harshly?
For project one, I think I'll let it slide. If in the past I've had like some students projects that have like 20 lines of debug output, and it makes it really hard then to find the phone call inside all of that. But no, I think it's fine. Will today be the only opportunity for pair or mob programming? The answer is no. So tonight and next week are both opportunities to pair program. Each student must attend one of those in order to inform their reflection, which is a project or a quiz that basically asks you to reflect on what it is that you experienced. Starting in week 5 and week 6, we'll be experiencing mob programming, and each student must attend one of those. And so then, you can decide tonight, after we, please stay through the introduction to mob programming and start getting set up with all of that. If you decide, hey, maybe you've had a long day, or maybe you want to focus on the project or something else, that's cool. You don't have to participate in the pair programming tonight, but remember, you do need to be here next week in order to participate in that, and then get the experience that you can then reflect on later. That's how your pair programming will be assessed for the term. And it's the same thing in weeks 5 and 6 with mob programming. Okay. So, any other questions before we move on? I want to introduce project 3. Okay, so in project 1, we introduced the phone bill application, and we did our fundamental command line parsing. We created our phone call and phone bill classes. In project 2, we augmented that with the ability to save, to write the phone bill out to a file and then read it back in again. In project 3, we are going to add the ability to what's called pretty print the phone bill. The whole idea of the text file format is that is a textual representation of a phone bill that can be easily read by, well, can be read by a computer, by your text parser. Pretty print, on the other hand, is meant to be consumed by a human, and it's meant to leverage Java's facilities for sorting data and also working with dates, for parsing dates and for formatting dates. So there's some additional functionality and implementation that you'll need to add to your phone bill application. So a number of you have asked about the get start time and get end time methods that return null by default, and you've noticed that they are of type Java util date. Well, this is the project in which you're going to be able to work with those. And so then what I'd like you to do in project 3 is get experience with using Java util date by implementing the get start time and get end time methods. I'd also like you to change your implementation of the get start time string and method and the get end time string method to return strings that are formatted using the date format.short formatter. So if you go and read up on the lecture, you'll learn all about the date class, you'll learn all about the date format class, but I'd like you to use those and apply that knowledge here in project 3. Now, there's another aspect of the Java util API that I'd like you to learn about in this assignment, and that's the ability to sort. So phone calls in a phone bill are now sorted, and the order that they're sorted in is chronologically by their begin time, first of all. And if you have 2 calls that begin at the same time, then they should be sorted by their caller's phone numbers. If you have 2 phone calls that begin at the same time and have the same caller, those are going to be considered the same. We're not going to further differentiate it. And so then if you have 2, again, if you have 2 phone calls that begin at the same time and maybe by the same caller, those are going to be considered equal. And so if you go and here again, look at the lecture on the core APIs. There's an interface called comparable, which is used for marking an object as being what's called naturally ordered. And I would like your phone call class to now implement this comparable interface so that 2 phone bills know how to order themselves with respect to each other. Also, I'm going to ask that you write a class called Pretty Printer, which is a different implementation of phone bill dumper. This is the same phone bill dumper as your text dumper. But instead of writing a phone bill and writing it to the text format that can be read by the text parser, I'd like you to create a textual representation of the phone calls that can be read by a person. And so then this is another opportunity to use date format to make the dates look nice. It's meant to experiment with the API, see what kind of formats you can make. And also, the Pretty Printer should include the duration of each phone call in minutes. So the whole idea is that you imagine this is like the phone bill that a person is reading, and it's in an easy-to-read format by a human. Finally, all of this is driven by a class called Project 3, which has all of the functionality of the previous project, and plus a new option for pretty printing the file. So has options followed by arguments, just as always. The arguments have the same semantics. However, there's an important difference on the dates. I'm going to jump down here.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? Look what I'm doing to you. At least maybe that's what you're reacting to. I don't know. So now the date format, instead of being 24-hour time, now is 12-hour time. So that means that each date now takes the start time and the end time each take 3 arguments from the command line instead of 2. And like an example of that date and time would be 01/02/2020 at 9:16 p.m. I give you a hint, they might want to use a simple date format class to parse this. So start and end date times are different. There's also a new option called -pretty, which is this pretty prints the phone bill to a text file or to standard out. So if the name of the file here is dash, then it should be then the phone bill should be pretty printed to standard out. Otherwise, the name of the file argument here to the -pretty option should be the name of a file to which the phone bill is pre-printed. And you still have the other options that were there in the first two assignments. You have -text file, -print, and of course -readme. And the readme should be updated for this project. So note that the phone bill should be pretty printed after the new phone call is added. So you'll parse the command line, create the, if text file is there, you'll read in the text file to create a phone bill. You'll add the new call to it, save the text file, and then also pretty print it. And you pretty print it after the new phone call has been added. A couple notes about error handling. You should exit gracefully with user-friendly error message if the command line is missing stuff, if the format of the date or time is incorrect, or, and here's a new requirement, if the phone call's end time is before its start time. Right, we haven't done much validation with the dates. As a matter of fact, I think I said either in office hours or in class last week that we're just checking up until now, we've just been checking the syntax of the dates. Well, now we're going to start checking the semantics of the date. So if the user enters a phone call whose end time is before its start date, its start time, that's now an error. While I was explaining that, it looks like some questions came in. That one was just answered. Okay, great. And so some people asked for some clarification on the -pretty option, and yeah, this is something that trips up people a lot. Old school Unix people like myself are used to this whole semantics where you use dash for meaning standard.out, but yes. So if on the command line is -pretty file name if it's -pretty dash, then you pretty print to standard out. Otherwise, the thing that follows pretty is the name of a file, and you'll write to that file. Question for project 2 and 3, will you enforce that the options must precede the args? That's always been true. That was true in project 1 also, that you have options and then you have arguments. And so then, yes. That being said, I don't think any of my test cases have arguments that start with dash or whatever. But yes, options always precede arguments. So just to clarify, we can only pass one phone call. That's true. Each invocation of the command line deals with a single phone call. The way you add more phone calls is you run the program multiple times with the same text file to add them. So it's possible the program should be able to output to a pretty print file and a regular text file. Exactly. Yep. So, I mean, kind of the whole idea is that you run the program multiple times to build up your database of phone calls, and then you pretty print it with another invocation of the program, which always adds a phone call. How should we be organizing our projects folders? Are we just adding to project 1? Yes, I mean, the intent here is that you're using the same code base. You'll have new classes, like the project 3 class will be new, as will the pretty printer. But you don't need to, please don't recreate your project. I suppose you could if you really want to, but don't. Instead, just augment the code that you already have. Okay. Those are some questions from chat. Are there any other questions about project 3 that people would like to ask?
Wait, so when we add to our older projects, we might break functionality with like a project 1 class if.
Yes, I mean, like for instance, the date format will change, and so then if you had integration tests for projects 1 and 2 that use the 24-hour time, those aren't going to work. So you'll need to change them to handle the new date format.
Okay.
This assignment is due in 2 weeks. Any other questions on it? Okay. Awesome. So, oops, sorry, week 3. Okay. Now, okay, we're running good. Let's talk about pair programming, mob programming. Let's start out with let's see here. So in Zoom, you can like say yes or no to things. Quick show of a green button or a red button. How many people here have heard of pair programming? Okay, most everybody has. A couple people haven't, and that's fine. I'm going to clear all this. Has anybody engaged in pair programming before? Anybody have any experience with it? A handful of people have, but most people haven't, and that's fine too. I know that, thinking back on my student days, this wasn't the kind of thing that was, really, it was really encouraged. Oh yes, and someone said yes, face-to-face, and unfortunately we're not face-to-face, so it'll be a different experience tonight. So, let's first off, let's watch a cheesy little video. It's the only kind that I have. I'm going to turn off sharing for a moment. Actually, share computer sound. Actually, I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment and then start again. Stop sharing. Get the video all queued up. Share again. Oh, wait a second. Sorry. I'm going to once more with feeling. Okay. So I'll share my screen. And I will share computer sound and optimize screen clip, or optimize for video clip. Okay. And I'll start the video.
Hello and welcome to Fun with Pair Programming,
Chat if you cannot
an introduction to pair programming for students. If you're a student who is new to pair programming, you've come to the right place. This video will help provide valuable information to make you the best pair programmer you can possibly be in your classes and beyond. Pair programming refers to the practice whereby two programmers work side by side on one computer, collaborating on the same design, algorithm, code, or test. The pair is made up of a driver, who actively types at the computer or records a design, and a navigator, who watches the work of the driver and identifies problems, asks clarifying questions, and makes suggestions. Switch roles from time to time to share the work evenly and get the most out of your pair programming experience. You'll hear effective pairs constantly chatting as they jointly decide how to tackle the task at hand.
Well, actually, I don't even know where it's saving this stuff. So we create a new patient and adds record. Oh,
Alright.
Probably in save data file. So it's going through, looks like a list of records.
So probably, since we just added the height and weight, I don't know if that's actually getting written.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
So
why do so many thousands of students around the world prefer pair programming? Why don't we ask some to compare old-fashioned solo programming to this new and innovative system?
Wait, what was the order?
You would program by yourself, so you'd usually be just by yourself in a computer, maybe in a cube or at a single desk, and it's a very lonely type thing. It can be.
Well, it could be really frustrating. You'd sit there banging your head against a desk and trying to find, the missing bracket, or couldn't figure out why the logic in your program didn't quite work right. And with two people there, it's a lot easier to work those problems out a lot more quickly, so you're not frustrated all the time.
This is nothing new either. Most science labs take advantage of lab partners and small groups. Computer science is no different. You can learn a lot from working with other people. Students find it helps them get better scores on programming projects. Pair programming helps them learn, so they get better grades on exams as well. Mostly, students report that they enjoy getting to know the people in their classes better. This makes it much easier to interact when problems do arise, because you've got a class full of friends instead of strangers. Last, but certainly not least, students are much more likely to figure out solutions if they've got someone to brainstorm with, and this can lead to faster completion times and a better understanding of the subject matter. Students often find the whole experience much more enjoyable and less frustrating. Pair programming will also help you prepare for your career in computer science. In the professional world, people collaborate and pair program all the time, and as an expert, you'll already be ahead of the game. Have you ever spent most of your class time with your hand in the air, getting nowhere on a project while you wait for help from your professor or lab instructor? With pair programming, those days are history, and you'll find yourself having a lot more fun. Who knows? Maybe you'll even look forward to the alarm going off in the morning so you can get to class. Now that you know the basics, let's look at some simple do's and don'ts of pair programming. First, be sure to talk. Not a minute should go by when you're not communicating somehow. Don't say anything that might insult your partner. Even if you're only joking, he or she might take it personally. Don't forget to listen too. Both the driver and the navigator should be fully engaged in the project. So much so that the driver can pass the keyboard to the navigator at any time, and he or she will be ready for the switch with no questions asked. Periodically switch positions so you can gain experience in both roles. Switching helps prevent errors and stimulates conversation too. Be patient. Be prepared to explain yourself to your partner, and don't get frustrated if they don't understand it first. By explaining your work to your partner, you'll be helping yourself learn as well. Remember the ancient Chinese proverb, to teach is to learn. And be sure to give the driver a little time to correct his or her own mistakes. After all, no one likes a backseat driver. Respect your partner. The golden rule is key here. Just remember to treat your partner with the same level of respect that you expect from him or her. It doesn't matter if they are from another culture, an introvert, an extrovert, a procrastinator, or the valedictorian. We are all here to accomplish one thing, and everyone has something to offer. Take breaks. You can get more done in 1 hour pair programming than in several hours by yourself. But this can take a toll on your brain. Don't forget to take a break every so often to keep yourself fresh and energetic. When you return, you'll likely see something you overlooked before. Be prepared. Be sure to do any preliminary work ahead of time and don't be late for appointments with your partner. Their time is valuable, as is yours. Hygiene. Think about it. How would you feel if the person you were going to spend a couple of hours with smelled terrible? Take a shower, brush your teeth, bring some mints. You know the drill. Have fun! Working with someone else can be a lot more fun than working by yourself. You can share a laugh, relieve some tension, and have someone to celebrate with when you get that last test case to pass. Believe me, that's a great feeling.
Now that we've gone through all the things you should do as a pair programmer, let's go through some of the things you should avoid when working with your partner.
Don't be a keyboard hog, or think that just because your partner is a novice and you're more experienced, that they won't bring something to the table. Don't constantly tell other people what to do either. You don't want to be the only person in the class that no one wants to work with because you're too bossy. There is another side to that coin, so don't be intimidated. Some people are afraid that they don't know enough, but chances are your partner feels the same way, and you both know way more than you give yourself credit for. Trust me, it will all be fine. The primary goal of pairing is to work together towards the best possible solution, so don't be afraid to speak up if you disagree with your partner from time to time. Your partner may as well be working alone if you're not willing to speak up. If you're unhappy with your pair programming situation, for any reason, don't hesitate to talk to your professor or teaching aide. That's their job, and they will be happy to help you resolve whatever problem you may have. As you can see, there are many benefits to pair programming, but there are also a few speed bumps. Sometimes you'll find it difficult to find time in your schedules to meet, for example. But students all over the world agree that the benefits outweigh any drawbacks that they can find.
If there's two of you working on it, typically you're spending a lot less time working on it, so this is great for homework. Then also I would say that in general, your solution is going to be better.
So if you're working with somebody and their grade or their deadline matters to you, you're more likely to get your work done at an earlier time. Also with pair programming, you can typically have higher grades on assignments. There's higher quality code as well.
This concludes our journey through the exciting world of pair programming, but there's still much to learn. Take these tips with you into your next pair programming lab and join the growing number of pair programmers across the country, the world, and beyond.
Okay, let me stop the video. Nice. Boy, it never gets any less cheesy. But I think it's a really effective way of conveying what pair programming is like. So I want to talk about a little bit of what we just saw. What were some of your observations about pair programming? What they were talking about?
So one thing that I noticed was switching roles often so that each person in the pair gets experience. And in the video, they actually physically shared the keyboard. So that was something I noticed.
Yeah, and when I do this activity in person, I have a bunch of USB keyboards that like the department got me a long time ago, and so that way people can actually share. It is kind of interesting talking about pair programming in a time of social isolation, and so we're gonna try to achieve the same thing as far as being able to switch pairs and go back and forth, but everybody will be on their own machines, and we'll see in a couple of minutes how we'll use GitHub to share our changes with each other.
I liked how they mentioned one, not to be a keyboard hog, but also not to be intimidated, because I think that's probably going to be extra important doing things not in person, because you can't tell very much about like body language or anything. So yeah, it's just important to participate and speak up, even if you're not sure or don't feel confident.
Yep. I agree. And it's kind of weird to be talking about programming in terms of words like intimacy and vulnerability. But there's just like when you're having a conversation with someone, or really when you're, you're working with someone on any project, you have to be open and to other people's ideas, and you need to be willing to express your own. And so then, even though this is different, I found that this is a really good way to learn and to overcome obstacles quickly. I spent most of this afternoon remotely pairing with one of my coworkers on a project that we're hacking on, and it was really cool because actually he had a lot more domain knowledge about this particular aspect of it, and then I was able to ask questions because I didn't really know. Like we were dealing with like with SSL certificates and private keys and all this kind of stuff. And while I knew some about it, I wasn't super familiar with the APIs. And so I was able to ask questions that actually made him realize like, oh, wait, I've got a logic error here. Or it's like, oh, okay, I don't know why this API works the way I think it does. Let's go find out. And so it's good to have that second pair of eyes on a problem. And we were actually able to go much faster. And then there was one point where he was trying to code something up and it's like, no, I don't know how to do that in my head. And so then I took control of the screen, which can't remember if you can do with Zoom or not. And I actually, wrote some code on his machine because I was able to do that on Microsoft Teams. So anyway, pairing remotely is possible, and it's a different kind of experience than otherwise. Other observations that people had about the video that we saw?
Yeah, I had a couple. One of them was that, at least from what I interpreted, it looks like they left out some of the issues that may be faced. They talked about what to do and what not to do, but they didn't talk about the issues that were likely to occur, like such as conflict. My way is better than your ways, or perhaps one person likes to overcomment and the other one doesn't, or even probably more to the point, some person doesn't type as fast as you, and it's very frustrating to watch somebody hunt and peck versus touch type kind of things.
Yep. And, and this is one of the things that I've heard through these exercises from my students. Tonight, we're going to try random pairs, see how that goes. Normally it's like whoever you're sitting next to each other, whoever you're sitting next to, you'll pair up. I think that's basically my lack of knowledge about how to really use breakout rooms efficiently. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, and here again, I think it takes patience, but then it also takes determination for someone to say, wait a second, sorry, I don't know what that API is, or it's like, oh no, wait, I'm still thinking in Python, but I'm writing in Java. It's a team sport, and the goal is to have the pair get something done, not just have one person bang it all out, because that ultimately diminishes learning. We want both people to feel that the best work has been put forward and they can both understand what's been done. Oh, so this is not divide and conquer, right? Yes. Well, there is a way to approach. Right. Okay. Divide and conquer, meaning two people working separately. Correct. Because that ends up taking longer, right? I mean, I bet a lot of people have been on a group project. It's like, okay, the 5 people on the group project, we'll divide up the code 5 ways. Each person will go off and do their own thing, and then we'll all meet in the middle. And what's the hardest part of that whole thing is integrating everybody's changes, everybody's different decisions, everybody's misunderstanding about what needs to be done and how it's done. It's actually, divide and conquer is often very inefficient. It's much more efficient to have multiple people pairing and piling on the same amount of work with very rapid feedback. And when you've got 2 people looking at the same code, it's about as fast as as you can go. Oh, looks like Alex says you cannot cannot remote control other screen shares on Zoom, I believe, and that's fine. because instead what you'll be doing is you'll be passing code back and forth via GitHub. How frequently is pair programming more effective than having two people on the same code? I'd say anecdotally most of the time, which is a very qualitative answer. I think there have been some studies out there, but it's been like a university setting. It's it's not necessarily cut and dry. Part of what I'd like you to experience, and actually when we get to it, the reason why I want you to reflect on this is to help inform your own learning, but also inform my learning about what this was like for you, and what you experienced, what you thought worked, and what you thought didn't work. Oh, and the question is, do you fork your repos? I'll tell you about that in a second. So you always pair program in a pair if you can. That's my preference, because I really feel that it amplifies my own learning and that it ends up with a result that that is better. Boy, you compare test-driven development and pair programming. You get the code that works right when it's checked in, and depending on how many other people might be working on the code, you might not necessarily need to have another peer review, another code review for it, and then that gets the code in production even faster. Great questions. I'll talk about how you'll be assessed in this moment. Okay, right, yes. And so then you get to experience pair programming here in class. You can't do that for your assignments. And this is because while software development in the real world is a team sport, this is a university, everybody gets their own grade, and what you'll be assessed on for the vast majority of your grade will be your own work. That's the way the class works. Yes, I mean, Scott, yeah, I'll amplify what you said, that it's really about making sure that everybody learns, that everybody has the same amount of knowledge. And we'll see with mob programming in a couple of weeks, that's blown up even more because everybody's eyes are on it. Right, and I think Daiwei brings up a good point about listen. When I have a narrative going when I'm writing code, but the narrative's in my head. I'm not used to verbalizing it, and I think it's fair to say if anybody isn't a native English speaker, or it's like, hey, the logic in your head is in a different spoken language, this might be a challenge, and it's all things that we can reflect on as we learn about and experience pair programming. One thing I wanted to highlight from the video, they talked about the two roles in pair programming, the driver and the navigator. The intent is that the person whose hands on the keyboard, they're thinking about the language syntax. They're thinking about the names of things, where the person whose hands are off the keyboard is taking a broader view and is maybe thinking about, hey, what's the next test that we need to write, or okay, how does this piece of code that we're writing right now fit in to the bigger picture? And so you've got two roles to consider, and they each provide very important input to the ultimate outcome of the pairing work. Oops, I guess I'm not sharing my screen. I will go back to doing that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk about this handout here, and then it's about time for a break because we've been going for a while. So this kind of reiterates a couple of things I've already talked about in terms of our realization that our best work is not done alone, that it's done in teams, it's done in groups. And it's because of the results that we had, right? It's this myth of the programmer toiling in isolation, and and they come out of their cave, or their basement or whatever, and it's like, here's the code and it's perfect. It just didn't turn out to be that way. People make mistakes when they work alone. People when code is influenced only by one person, it's harder for other people to work with. And so then, and also kept it kept knowledge siloed, so that people globally weren't able to take advantage of it. And so then the pair programming movement and then the mob programming movement that followed it basically says that no, you get better software when you have two or more people contributing to it. And this is because you have shorter feedback loops, right? Learning is more rapid and learning is amplified because more people are receiving that knowledge. So in this course, I want you to experience these things in contrast to your programming project assignments, which are individual. Here in class, we will experience both pair programming and mob programming by implementing what are called code katas. These are simple programming projects that are meant to explore a new language. It's something that's simple, something that can be accomplished in like 45 minutes or an hour. So this isn't something that's going to take you days to do because they're not very complicated. So this handout is meant for an in-class setting, but I think it applies here too. Actually, I know it applies here too. So how we're going to collaborate is we're going to use a publicly hosted GitHub repository. So unlike your project code, which I want you to put in a private repository, the katas anybody can see. And so what I'd like you to do is what we'll go through after break is we will go through that same exercise that we did in the first day, where we take a special clone of my getting started repository. This will be for katas. And we'll use the create kata project in a script in that clone that we make to make a new Maven project that's for your katas. And we'll go back over this later, but you use there are two arguments to the create kata project script. One is the name of the kata, and then they'll have the student ID or the name of your pair or whatever you want to use. So as I've said, each student is required to participate in at least one pair programming exercise, and there's also a requirement to have to be participating in one mob programming exercise. What we'll do is we'll get started tonight, and we will implement the kata, and we'll take we'll work off in our pairs in breakout rooms, and then we'll come back as a whole class and reflect on what we learned before then diving back into our rooms to learn some more. As far as the assessment goes, there's a D2L quiz in which you'll have an opportunity to reflect on your experience as pairing, and there's another quiz for mobbing. And this is an answer. You're going to be answering a couple of short answer questions in the D2L, and basically, I want to know who you paired with, or the group of people that you mobbed with. I'd like a link to that public GitHub repository so I can pick a look at your code and things like that. I'm not going to run your code. I'm not looking for correctness or anything like that. I just want to see what you come up with, and I also want to make sure that you do it, that you just don't sit there and have one line of code, or you just don't have anything. But I think what's most important is your description of what you experienced pairing or mobbing. It's like, hey, what did you observe? What did you feel during it, and overall, what did you learn? And then also some commentary on when you think what kind of situations you think pairing or mobbing would be effective, and when you think it would be ineffective. So here again, this is a reflection. It's a rather qualitative assignment. There's not a lot of right and wrong. Really what I'm looking for is just your feedback. I would like you to experience this. I'd like to hear about what you experienced. And so then, let's see, there are a couple of questions about, hey, how will this be graded? I hope this was answered here. Any other discussions in general on how we will approach the pair programming exercise tonight?
Just to clarify, I just made a Git repository, and I realized I made it without a README. Do we need that or anything, or are you just looking?
You shouldn't. And as a matter of fact, I'd like you to follow remember what we did in the first day where we made that bare clone of my repository, and then I'd like you to do that again, because that way you'll get the create kata project script, which, believe me, will save you some time tonight.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see here. The question is: the objective more about the experience versus the result? Yes. So it's hey, we're not gonna we're all gonna get tired at some point tonight. It's not so much about completing the kata; it's about what you learned along the way. both in terms of the coding and then also the pairing. If we would rather to do this next week, when is the correct time to leave before messing up your breakout rooms? How about you come back after break, and I want to make sure that everybody creates a kata repository. But then, yeah, if you're done for tonight or whatever, you can leave after that. So it'll probably be like, 7:15 or something like that, and you'll be done. Okay. Math midterm tomorrow. That does not sound fun at all. Okay, let's take a break, and let's take a decent size break. It is 6:38 right now. Let's reconvene at 7. I've been talking for a while. I could use a little break, so we'll take a 22-minute break, and let's start back up again at 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 o'clock, we're back. I'm standing up now. Okay, share my screen. So at the beginning of class, we started our discussion about pair programming. And we watched a cheesy video. We talked about what it might mean, some of our experiences in it. And now we're getting closer to actually doing some pair programming. So, but first, I want to make sure we're all set up with a GitHub repository that we can share. Some people come through in chat. Okay. Oh, sorry. For people, let's see, a couple people asked me, we're back. And well, we're back now at 7. Okay. So anyway, remember from the first day when we created our Portland State Java Summer 2020 repositories, we're going to create another repository for the katas. This repository is going to be public so that it's easier for people to collaborate, and therefore I and anyone else can see it. So I'd like you to all follow along at home and make sure that we've got, sorry, I want to show participants. So that everybody can have a repository going. Also, for people playing along, there is a katas channel in the, oh, it was blurry, but it cleared up now? Okay. Sorry, yeah, and I don't necessarily have the best internet right now, so hopefully it's back for everybody else. Sorry, I am screen sharing. Oh, I'm screen sharing in a way. Wait a second. I forgot to take, when I shared the screen, I forgot to take off the share computer sound optimized for video. And so maybe you'll get something better looking now. Anyway, so let's take a couple minutes and have us all go through this, this getting started guide again for creating a katas repository that, just like your Summer 2020 repository that you're using for your projects, is a sort of magical clone of this repository. This will give you the create scripts and all that other good stuff. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a public repository in GitHub. Let's go to a different one here. We're going to say new repository. And this is going to be Portland State Java Summer 2020 katas. That's what I'm going to call mine. You can call yours really whatever you want. That's fine. I don't want a description. I want it to be public. Do not initialize it with a README. Okay, so create a public repository. Great. Now I've got this public repository. Next thing I want to do is I want to do this little dance with making a bare clone of my getting started repository. So I'm going to go back to my command line over here. And I'm going to issue this git clone command. Actually make sure that I'm in a decent directory. And I'm going to say git clone dash bear that. Oh, you know what? Actually, you all can use HTTPS. I'm going to use keys. Go back up here, use that URL. That makes the bear clone. Now I'm going to push my my clone. I'm going to say Portland State Java getting started.git, CD in that directory, and I'm going to push it to my new repository here. I lost the chat.
Where can we find these instructions again?
This is from the Portland State Getting Started repository. I posted about it just now in the hashtag katas channel in Slack. And yeah, it's the README for repository. Andrew says, is my website down? Nope, looks good to me. View. Okay. So now I created the repository. I did this git clone command, CD'd into the .git directory, and now I'm going to push those changes off to this repository here. That's the new repository that I created. Okay, and now if I go back to Git and I refresh, I've now got a ton of stuff in my katas repository, all freshly created from the getting started. And I'm going to get rid of this git directory. And now I'm going to make a clone of my, instead of summer 2020, it will be my summer 2020 katas repository. So I will again copy the URL and I will say git clone that thing. And now I should have Portland State Java Summer 2020 katas, which contains all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to pause here for a moment while other people are working on this. Please speak up via the Zoom chat. That's what I've got up right now. If you have questions or want me to repeat something that I've said. We're going to start with our own repo for the katas, and then each pair, they're going to choose one person's repository to have that particular kata. But I want everybody to have their own. So because I mean they're going to be doing at least two pairing / mob activities.
Is the Portland State Java Summer 2020.git, would the name of that be whatever our repository that we just created's name is?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so right here, it's not, yeah, it's not this, it's the one that you just created. And so then, yeah, mine is Summer 2020 katas, and that gets here, and use it here too for the clone. Okay. What's the flag in Windows instead of -RF? It's DL. I don't know. Let's see here. Forgot to add -- bear. Yes, you need to have the -- bear on the initial clone. So blow away that clone and start over again. Because what this does is it makes like a very special clone of the repository that you can then push off to a different repository, but it gives you the history from the original one. So it's a lot like doing a fork, but maybe I could just have everybody do a fork. No, because then your repository would be called getting started, and that doesn't make sense. You want to be able to change the name of your repository. As people finish up, would you please click the yes in Zoom so I can get an idea of how many people are still working? Let's see here. The question is the git clone -- bear with that the same command? Yes, that's correct. You want to make a bear clone of my work, and then what you'll do is you'll push it to your own repository.
Do we need to run the Maven clean or anything like that?
Well, actually, we haven't even gotten that far yet. So the .git at the end very much matters. That's how you know you've got the right kind of clone. And actually, if you're still working on it, could you click no, please? Thank you. That'll give me an indication of like who's still working on it versus, hey, maybe who's just playing along or, left it going. Okay, good. Still got a lot of people.
Hey, I have a quick question. Is it okay if I ask?
Please do.
After I've created that directory inside my account, and then I do the push, do I need to change anything besides my GitHub repository, like username?
You'll basically need to make sure to get the right URL, the URL to the new repository you just created. So mine was the summer 2020 katas.
And that goes in place of Portland State Java Summer 2020?
Correct. Right, what you've done is you've taken, here again, this special clone of my repository and you're pushing it off to your repository. And this is the way we make this fancy copy of my Git repository.
Can we do this on the PSU machines?
Yes, I believe you can.
Okay.
Great. Looks like almost everybody's gotten it.
Okay, so now we should be just right at the part after we've git cloned it.
Yep, down here, yeah. So this is the last
Okay.
step for now. And so what you should end up with is a clone of your new repository on your local file system.
Gotcha, cool.
And if you CD into that, it should look very familiar. It should look exactly the same as the top level of your the repository that contains all of your project code. Okay. See here, when I did the push, I got no refs in common and unspecified, doing nothing. Perhaps you should specify a branch as master. Max, when you created your new repository, did you initialize it with a GitHub or a description? I'm sorry. So no, you didn't initialize it. Oh, very interesting. Would you mind pasting a link to your repository there in the chat, and I'll take a look at it real quick. That's interesting. It says it's empty, which I think is okay. Let me quick look. I'll do a checkout right here. Oops.
Once we've
Yep.
Once we've cloned all that into that directory, the kata one.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. I don't know if it's on your end or my end. Oh. I've got no audio. I think it's on. Yeah, okay. Actually create a kata and push over original repo. Should I need to delete it or does not matter? I think it'll be okay, Deep. Sorry. Let's try that again. Copy. Where'd that go? Oh, it's probably over down at the end. Here we go. You prove clone empty repository. Well, that's fine. Interesting. Okay. So Max, I'm not too sure what's going on here. That's interesting. I wonder if I can push to it. Hey Max, can you make me a collaborator on your repository?
Sure.
Okay, we've got almost everybody's ready to go. So we're gonna try this real quick. And if it doesn't work, then we'll move on and I can help a couple other people while everybody's starting to pair.
How does one make another collaborator?
Oh, it's in the, let's see here, settings. Does it manage access these days?
Yeah, it's manage access.
Yeah, invite a collaborator.
Thank you.
Question from Yan. When do we need to replace the Portland State Summer 2020 to the kata and the command line again? Not in the first one. So not in the bear clone, but when you push to your repository. And when you do the regular clone, you clone your repository. See here, I probably need to accept. I'm going to go off screen here for a minute because I'll be looking at my email.
If we should POM files ever be added, like pushed to our Git repository?
Yeah, they absolutely should be. Yep. There we go. Thanks for the invitation. Accept the invitation. Okay. Oh, nice. Okay. Okay, thanks for inviting me to be a collaborator. And now I think I should be able to push. Okay. So I think it was Max. Try again. Oops, sorry. Where am I with chat? So I think Max, now your repository, yes, should have everything. I'm not sure what was going on with that no refs in common. I'm not sure, but it looks like I was able to get you everything now. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it should be working now.
Sweet.
Can you show us what we should have in our repository for the kata repository?
Yep, you should have this. Do you want to see from the command line? Actually, let me get rid of all this stuff here. So what you should have is a bunch of shell scripts and command scripts, Maven Wrapper, POM, and that settings.xml. Is that what you see?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Nice. Okay, cool. Okay, now I know there are two people that haven't got everything working, and I'm happy to work with you after in a minute. Gotcha. Okay, good deal. Let's go to the kata. So, a few years back, this notion of code katas became kind of popular. The whole idea is that either people working on their own, or more likely people will get together. They wanted to learn a new language. They wanted to learn something new about the language they already knew. And so they participate in these little coding exercises called katas. Kata is, let's see here, I think it's a practice in martial arts, and it's basically this movement that you go to learn and to be taught. And so I guess you can read this blog post about how it all started, which is kind of neat. But I adopted this for this course. And so the whole idea is that when we pair program, we mob program, we work on small problems that are meant to be straightforward and easy to understand, because what we're focusing on is the programming experience, getting experience with the language, with the tools, and of course pairing with each other. And so the kata that we're going to do tonight is a kata all about, well, working with Roman numerals. So let's see here. Sorry, I need to get some screen real estate here. And I'll post the link to this in the, I'll post it into chat, but then I'll also post it into Slack so everybody can, oops, that's not right. There we go. And I'll put it into Slack. Tonight's kata is, and you can all read along. So the whole idea is that we're going to write a function, so a method that converts from normal numbers to Roman numerals. So if you give it an integer 1, it returns an I, and if it's 10, it returns an X, and if it's 7, it returns VII. There's, if you want to see an example, there's a reference here. And so this is what we'll start out with. Just, write a function that takes a number and then returns its Roman numeral value. I think this is an ideal exercise for test-driven development. So you'll be able to, very easily build it up over time and evolve the logic in your code. Okay, and you don't need to go larger than 3,000. Let's just see how far we get tonight. If there's time and your pair wants to do it, you can work on part 2, which is a function that goes the other way to take a Roman numeral and turn it into a digit. So this is the kata that you and your partner are going to be working on. There is a create kata project script in the repository. It takes 2 arguments. The first one is the name of the kata, so I'll call mine like Roman numerals, and then it takes a name. You can use your user ID, or you can invent one for your pair or whatever. And when you run this, this is just basically the same thing as your project 1, but it creates a new Maven project with all of the stuff that we're used to. So now if we go to IntelliJ and open new one, and we are in the katas, and we open up the top level pom.xml. We to open it as a project. You can use your username or your team name. It's whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. I want to do this in a new window because you'll be emailing me, or sorry, in the survey, in the reflection, you'll be telling me the GitHub URL, so I can just go look at that. Okay, now we've got our katas project. It has a Roman numerals project in it, and it's got a kata class here that is very much like what you saw with the student or with the project 1. How do we open the pom.xml in the first directory? Inside IntelliJ, you say new, you say file open, and then you navigate to that pom.xml. I'll be very happy to show you that. I'll do better than showing you the create kata. Oh, thank you, Zane. Yep, I'll even post that in. Actually, Zane, could you also post that in Slack? Appreciate that. But this is a, oops, sorry, Roman numerals. I got chmod, Maven W, chmod plus X, Maven W. So Maven W clean verify. And so now you've got a Maven project that you're used to. It has all the same stuff as the as your project 1. Nice. Okay. So now I am going to commit all of this code. I'm going to add all that to version control. And I'm going to commit it and say add brand new project for code kata. And I'm going to push that up to GitHub. So someone asked, how are we going to pair? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break everybody up into breakout rooms. I'm going to choose random pairings, going to see how that works. And then you and your partner will do a couple of things. First off, you'll determine which GitHub repository you're going to use to share your code. And so then presumably it's, one person has created the repository, the other person is going to get a clone. And then you're both going to open up the project in IntelliJ to make sure that you can do all of that. And then one of you is going to share your screen and start coding up the kata. I recommend that you start with some unit tests and do this using test-driven development. And then you'll start pairing. You'll talk about what tests you want to write first, how you're going to implement that test. And then what I'll do is periodically request that everybody switch pairs. And at that point, you can commit your code to GitHub, push it up to GitHub, and then it's the other pair's turn. They will pull that code from GitHub, just like you pulled it from GitHub on the CS department's machines. They'll pull that into their local repository, and then they can start driving. When should we call it? When should we call what? Be done if we don't finish. What we're going to do is we're going to try this for a little while. We're going to come back and reflect on it as a group, and then I'm pretty sure I can reassign you back to the same breakout room so you can continue. So when we pull, should that be in the new local repo? Yes, a checkout of, so let's say your partner is the person whose repo you're using. You'll make a new local checkout. So wait, there are multiple pairs working together? No, there's not. There's going to be one pair working, but then we're all going to come back to the main room and talk about it a little bit more, and then we'll go back and do some more pairing. And actually, you know what? Because this is pretty new, and maybe not everybody is super familiar with Git push and pull, could someone volunteer to maybe be my partner initially, and we can pair in front of everybody for a couple of minutes just so people can see what it'd be like? Raise your hand if you want to pair with me for a minute or two in front of everybody. Great, Alex was first. Okay, thanks, Alex. Okay, yeah, come off mute. Great. Let's use your repository. So let's see here. Could you IM me your repository and I'll get a check out of it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sweet. Okay, so I will get the URL. Let's see here. Let's put it off my students directory. This is summer 2020. Make dir Alex dash Bailey. Oops. So of course, you all can put it wherever you'd like. Git clone. Like using that one. Great.
So that's what I meant by my question is you're actually creating another cloned repository, not the one we just got done creating ourselves.
We're making a clone of a repository. So I'm sorry. So I think when you said create a repository, I was thinking, oh, like, you go up to GitHub and then you say, create a new repository up here. It's not that. You're getting a clone of somebody else's repository.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So now I've got this checkout from Alex. So actually, let's see here. Make sure. Okay. Have you created? Doesn't look like you've created the project yet. Alex, do you want to create it, or do you want me to create it?
Either way, I think I did create it. I just didn't push it.
Okay. How about you do that then? If you could add it to GitHub and to push it up.
Okay. All right then. Git. Let's see. Commits. Creating project. Git push. Okay. And pushing. And it should be done.
Nice. There it is. And you know what? I think in order for me to push this repository, I'm going to have to be a collaborator.
Oh,
could you add me as a collaborator? Meanwhile, I will, let's see here. I will do a git pull.
How do you add collaborators?
Yeah, you go up under, here, I'll do it for one of mine. You go up under settings.
Okay.
And then you say manage access. And then you can invite a collaborator from there.
Let's see, my collaborator. Okay, and is it Whitlock or?
David Whitlock.
David Whitlock. Okay.
Got me with my arms crossed, looking very corporate.
Okay, let's see, and add. So should be there.
Nice. Okay, I'll get to that later though. Let's see here. Great. I did a pull and it got all the stuff. So I'm going to go into the Roman numerals directory, make sure I can. Nope. I think I need chmod plus x, the Maven wrapper. Clean verify. Good, looks like everything is run. Okay, so now I'll open up this in IntelliJ. And so now we can both see the code. Oh, and actually so I'm gonna go off screen here just for a moment while I go look at my email and accept the invitation. Yes, accept invitation. Sweet. Okay, good. Share my screen again. Sorry, where was I? Ah, yes. Okay, so now I want to open up your katas. I'm just going to close mine so I don't get confused. Open up your kata project, the one that I created the clone of. That is not here. It's in the students. It's in the Alex. It's right here. It is this pom.xml. Open it as a project, please. I thought I already told you. Don't ask me again. Open up a new window. It's thinking about it. Good, it found everything. Roman numerals. Great, okay. So now we're at a point where we can pair program. Here's what I'm going to do. I'd like to start.
Okay.
And I'll write a very simple test. So let's see here. I'm going to get rid of this can instantiate katas class. Instead, I'm going to have a test. Let's see here. Public void Roman numeral for 1 is I. And so let's see here. I want to say assert that. Oops. Assert that. Got to import all this stuff. And let's see here. I'm just going to say kata dot. I'm going to have, I don't know, Roman numeral for 1 equal to I. Going to import that from Hamcrest. I'm going to create this. Oops, that's not what I want. Yeah, because I could have done it here. Oh no, wait, that's not. Sorry, that is what I wanted. Took me to the class, I didn't even see it. Return to string, and we'll say this is number. Right now, sure, return null, because I'll go back to my test, and I'll run this. And it's building, and then it's going to fail. Okay, I expect that's good. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna like change my environment a little bit. I'm going to move the test to the right. I like to have stuff side by side. I also like to be able to right click. There we go. Good, now I can sort of see both. Okay, let's have a dumb test. Or let's have a dumb implementation. It's always going to return I. I'm going to run it again, and it passes. Good. Well, I'm done. Okay, partner, your turn's next. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to check my code into version control. And so I'm going to say commit. I'm going to say added the first unit test. And I am going to commit and push it up. I don't know, it's talking about some warnings or something. That's fine. I'm going to push it up. Okay, and so now I'm just going to check to see, oops, that is not Alex's. This is Alex's. Now if I reload here in GitHub, good. I made the most recent commit.
Okay.
So Alex, would you share your screen now and
Yeah.
then walk us through maybe writing the next test?
Yeah. I guess you're sharing, so I cannot.
Oh, that's a good point. That's true. I need to stop sharing. Right. The way I have it configured, you just can't grab the screen.
Okay.
Well, there was some chat.
Okay. That one. Oh,
Well, that's an awesome background.
thank you. Should be in here. Whoop, I forgot to go. Okay, where'd it go? Why am I? Oh, my PowerShell didn't want to come up to the top. That's weird. So just git pull. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Nice.
Can the pushes and pulls be done within the IDE?
That's my preference, but I know a lot of people like using the command line. What you'll need to do now is you'll need to synchronize. So if you go up under the, shoot, is the file menu someplace? I always do it from the, oh wait, there it is.
Oh, it's going to populate itself.
Okay, so I guess, yeah, I figured it out. Okay.
I'm still missing the other file, it seems.
I don't think so. I
Right?
just don't think you've expanded it yet. You mean the test file?
Yeah, or is that in a different place?
Yeah, it's in the
that's
test directory.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. How about you run this test just to make sure it works?
Okay. All right, so it works.
Okay.
That's
cool. So let's see here. So like, what's the next test that we should write?
I guess the 5.
Okay. Yeah, let's do 5.
Room 1, 4, 5 is that's 4, 5 equal to and capital B.
Yeah.
I guess I should run it.
See here, somebody asked, could not find our load main class, the Maven Wrapper. Oh yeah, what is that? Let's see, where I can't find the Maven Wrapper. That's there's something in the
I think it's just there's no if conditional, so it's already assigning it to I.
Oh, I think he might be referring to another problem.
Oh.
Yeah, someone's having a Maven issue, I think. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Well, I don't think there is a remote control Daiwei. Actually, I don't see it now. Do I have? Oh, it does. Actually, there is a request for remote control. I don't know if they work in breakout rooms though. As a matter of fact, gosh, I hope screen sharing works in breakout rooms. Do you guys know that it does?
I have not tried myself.
Okay.
It did when we did the
Oh, good.
assessment on reflection
okay.
on.
Thanks on that first day.
Yep.
Phew. Okay. Excellent. Oh, I realize I'm not plugged in. Awesome. I was a terrible pair. I was not paying any attention to what was going on. But looks like you have a failing test. Okay, let's make it fast.
Okay. Oh, brunky. So if I guess just number is equal to 1. Let's see. It's 5. 10. The simplest way to make it work, I suppose.
Yep. I don't think it's going to compile though.
Oh, am I missing something?
Well, yeah. There's if it's not one of it's not 5, we don't return anything. So I think you need to.
Yeah. I guess I could do just like an else.
That. Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, let's try it again. And
nice.
Passed.
Okay. So this is the this is how I'm imagining that we can collaborate. So the person who's driving shares their screen and is working out of the working on a checkout of a clone of that repository that both people have access to. And then one person works for a little while, and that's probably not one test at a time, right? It'll probably be I don't know, 5 minutes until someone someone is done. Actually, I'll blow the whistle at some point and say, okay, everybody switch. Although probably what you want to do when you get started, the first thing just to make sure that each person can access the repository and everything is do what we did, write a very simple test, make it watch it pass, and then immediately pass the baton to the other person, make sure that their environment works. And then pass it back. Okay.
All right.
Let's give this a try. So thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate you being a guinea pig here.
You're welcome.
You can stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
I will now break everybody out into breakout rooms. There are 46 people. And I will, let's see here, 40. Okay, people are leaving, and that's fine. Yep. Okay, we get 43, a nice uneven number, 42. So that's a 21, 2 participants per room. Let's see what happens. So I'm about to send everybody to breakout rooms. I will try to go sort of pair to pair. If you, if like you're both stuck or whatever, let's see here. I guess the way to get my attention is to leave the breakout room and then wait for me to come back, I guess. And I'll actually, what actually better than that, use the, can you, I don't know if you can chat with me once you're in the breakout room. So let's just use Slack and use the kata's channel. So if raise your hand there, it's like, oh, hey, we can't get things to work, and I'll poke my head in your breakout room. Okay, let's give it a try. Here we go. Sure. Open all rooms. Meanwhile, Well, I will pause the video. Okay, we're all back. Well, cool. I was poking my head in on a couple of the breakout rooms. I gotta say, I was really pleased with what I saw. Everybody seemed to be engaged. People were getting their environments up and running. People were writing tests. People were having really good discussions about things. So what I'd like to do, just in the next 13 minutes before 9 o'clock, I want to talk and debrief and talk about what your experiences were like. What are some of the things that you saw? What are the things that you were learned? And so please raise your hand if there is an observation that you would like to share. Sarah.
I noticed that I noticed it when you were driving in yours and you were, I guess, narrating a lot. And that became like really obvious that even though they can see your screen, it makes sense to kind of narrate so they know what you're doing and it's not just kind of like what's going on. Another thing that I kind of noticed that it was like really helpful to have the pair, because you kind of can get like set in your ways or just have like an approach that works. And so it's nice for someone to be like, oh, I've tried that, or, oh, I think this could work. Because we got to a point where we were like kind of researching a thing. And so it was nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of versus just kind of like, kind of randomly Googling a thing.
It's a Google in real life.
Yeah.
Which means that they're probably Googling for you. Cool.
Well,
excellent.
Like one person, Googling where you might be going down a path, but when you have someone to kind of like collaborate and rein in, it can be a little more fruitful, I think.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Let's hear Mark. You also have your hand raised.
Yep, sure did. Just a couple things. One is we kind of, Seth was my partner, and both he and I were commenting on the fact that we picked up stylistic or practices or stuff that wasn't necessarily part of the code, but just more of a, oh, that's how you do things, or hey, how did you show me that tick? So we learned a little bit about IntelliJ between the two of us. So just from that experience, that was really, really beneficial. The other thing that I noticed was that we quickly, I mean, I'm sure most folks did, is you start out with that same kind of pattern of, okay, let's start with a test of 1, then we went to 2, and we quickly evolved into a very long if then else series of tests just to get that pass. And so at one point we thought, well, should we break away from just coding and just sit back and kind of talk about the design or approaches of what we want to do versus I guess what they would preach us of having a navigator and a coder. Like it didn't feel like it was right, at least at that point with the infancy of this project, but yeah, that's what we experienced.
Great. Awesome. I'm curious about your implementations and the approaches that you took. Would anybody be willing to share their code, share their screen, and walk us through how they did it? So raise your hand, please. Alex, thanks for volunteering.
Sure.
Go
Excuse
first.
me. Let's see. Then I'll need to.
I mean, you got off to such an awesome start with my
your help.
Did generate unicase.
Let's see. Screen share. Okay. So ours was fairly straightforward. I assume most of them probably are, but we had. Where do we put? Here it is. We made a function that would break the number down into each digit place into a separate list. So hundreds, tens, ones, and then we had a simple for loop that went through that list, and then depending on which position you are, if you're in the hundreds place or the thousands, then we would give the appropriate letters for 0 to 3, 4, 5 to 8, 9.
Wow.
So.
Cool. And do you have some tests to go along with it?
Yeah, so we tested most of the, every couple of numbers, 1, 5, like 5,300, 1,000, 1,300, and some of the tens, 30, 40, 70.
Pretty cool. So what are some of the things that you learned along the way?
As far as like pair programming, or
Yeah, or just how to approach a problem like this, or yeah, in pair programming.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it was certainly helpful because they catch mistakes that otherwise, could have taken me longer, just because I didn't realize it while I was typing, or they didn't realize that while they were typing. And the general idea of breaking down problems. My partner suggested this, and it worked really well because it made this part really easy. Because you had to do basically the same thing with slightly different letters, so it worked out really well.
Excellent. And who is your partner? Who'd you pair it with?
Evan, whose last name is escaping me.
So Evan, what was it like pairing with Alex?
Hi. I think it went really well. Yeah, I suggested the that one method, but then Alex came up with the general flow, the rest of the flow, and we were just kind of iterating through breaking it down digit by digit, which I think really helped. And I'm already seeing things like we can start refactoring at this point, but I think we got pretty far with the time we had. So yeah, I think that's well.
Great. Great, thank you very much. Let's see here. There was someone else. What's going on in chat? Someone else had their hand raised. Sarah, was that you who had your hand raised?
It was, yeah. Now I'm spacing on what I was thinking of.
Did you want to show off your code?
Yeah, I can.
If you wouldn't mind.
Yes, that was the question. I always volunteer to talk, and then I don't know why I do that because I'm all of a sudden like, wait, I'm on the spot. Why did I do? So can you guys all see my screen? Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. So here is our test. We started out just doing, 1 and then 5 and then 10, and then that's when we got to realizing like we should probably have a design, and we talked about like maybe grouping them or doing some sort of subtraction. But we thought also like, oh, let's kind of look for a pattern. I guess we weren't thinking about how much time it would take. We were just kind of like, let's go from here. So we just did, and we figured also, in theory, we would go to like 3,000 or whatever. So messing with the lower numbers and getting a pattern would get us like a good feel for that. And so when we ended, when we ended, I think let me know if I'm pronouncing that right, my partner, that way?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
And so I realized his code isn't committed, but so we got to, these individual ones where like return this if this, just very kind of verbose, but then we were working on a data structure, like maybe like an array list to kind of make things make sense. I don't know if you want to add more the way about your approach because you were coding at the end there. Yes, I can stop sharing.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. A couple more hands raised. Max, I think you were next.
Hey, yeah. I was working with Lawrence. We didn't get super far on the actual getting the proper Roman numerals returned, but we did come up with a pretty slick test where we did an array, and that was nice. It cleared out like 10 tests into one, and tested a bunch of values by just asserting one array was equal to another array for each index.
So code or didn't happen? Let's see it.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Here we go. So yeah, we
There you go,
just
that's
we had a
nice.
string of
Yeah.
numerals, or an array of strings for numerals, and array of ints for digits, and then just compare one to the other. And actually, this doesn't need to be there. That was from the previous test.
Nice. Okay, and let's see. It looks like you have your implementation over there on the left.
Oh
Let's take a look
yeah,
at that.
yeah. We were working on like a way to do this
Ah.
recursively, where we would take the largest value and append it. But then we realized there were a bunch of edge cases, and we weren't sure if we should do like a case for each edge case.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's probably a much cleaner solution, but that was about as far as we got.
Nice. Super sweet. Okay. Thanks. Let's see here. Got a couple more. Alexander. Alex. Big Al.
Hey, yeah, I ended up working with Tom for this, and I think it was like a really good experience. I found it pretty difficult to explain like the ideas that I had for the code, especially when you're not the one with the keyboard. But it was definitely a fun experience. Here, let me show you the code a little bit. Cool. So we wrote some tests over here, and we got it to work with numbers larger than or less than 4,000.
Nice.
And the way we did it was like, we were doing stuff with switch statements at the beginning, but then we realized, you know, there's got to be some sort of algorithm out there for this. So we ended up finding some good like descriptions of the algorithms and kind of followed the pseudocode for it. And the way that we ended up doing it was kind of going through and subtracting off, you know, the modulus of the numbers so that we could sort of append to a string as we went along. So if the number is like 8, for example, you would say, okay, is it bigger than any of these numbers? If not, okay, so it's not bigger than 9, but it's bigger than 5.
Mm-hmm.
Then we find the remainder and then subtract 5 from the number. And then we can append that 5 to the number. And you could like while loop through all this data to construct the string. But yeah, I think it was a good experience to pair program. I haven't done it in a long time, and doing it remotely is kind of hard for sure.
Super cool. Yeah, I like that implementation. It's cool. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to see all the diversity in how people have approached the problem and how people have solved the problem. Scott, you're up next. Scott, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
My bad. Thank you.
That's all right.
Okay, so yeah, we had some pretty simple and repetitive code that I'm sure can be shortened quite a bit, but it worked pretty well for what we had. We just kind of had a series of while loops here that took the thousands group, the 500 group, the 100 group, and so on, and just kind of added to a string builder, which worked pretty well. You know, we tested a number of different things and just kind of changed all of these tests along the way to make sure that they would work out okay. And so far everything did, with the exception of we didn't have it set up to where we would do like 4 is, you know, like IV or something like that, but we figured out a way that would work if we had time to implement that. So yeah, simple and repetitive, it worked.
Nice, cool. Tell me a little bit more about your tests. I'm sorry, did you say you changed the test along the way?
Yeah, so basically what we would do is we would,
oops, lost the audio.
You know, still got me?
You're cutting out. I can't tell if it's on my end or your end.
Oh, okay. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Okay, you're kind of going in. You're kind of getting auto-tuned.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so instead of writing a long series of tests, we ended up kind of changing these tests along the way just to save some time. But I know that that's probably not the preferred method.
Well, I mean, think about what that would mean for your code coverage if you do that for your project, right?
Oh,
You're
right,
doing all
exactly.
this,
No.
right? You're doing all the work to exercise the code, and then your tests are kind of thrown away. So,
right, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, there's trade-offs to be made. Sweet.
Yeah. Cool.
Good deal. Okay.
So I just
Yeah, sweet.
pulled the
Yep.
request and I added few more cases. We didn't do it for 900, 400 in this one. So I just updated and just committed it right now. So this is more complete. I'm not able to share my screen for some reason. So yeah, I just committed it right now.
Then could your pair, or were you in the group of
Yeah,
3? I can't remember.
someone can pull the request and share it, I guess.
Who
yeah,
worked
Swetha, I tried to pull and I do not see any changes.
Can you just try again? I think it just got committed now.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. But I didn't write, I just wrote one more test case, but I covered them.
Yeah, gosh, it's saying no items to pull.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, sorry, Swetha, I've tried it a few times here.
It's okay, no issues.
Best laid plans.
That's all right. So, I guess one other thing I was curious on, how did sharing stuff via GitHub work? Most people who I poked into their room, they seem to have all that working. Did enough groups get that working? Oh, click yes or no. That's right. Yeah, we can do yes or no. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty fast and easy after setup. Okay. Good. Okay, yeah, someone clicked on go faster because it's time to go, and it is time to go. So, excellent. Okay, well, anyway, so thank you for exploring this tonight. Never done remote pair programming on this scale before, and actually I'm pleased with not only the results that you got in the code, but also the interactions I saw were really great, and I think it shows in the result. So that's it for tonight. Just as a quick recap, after Prime Minister's questions, we talked about assignment 3, project 3 builds on the other one, and then we spent the rest of the time doing pair programming, right? We watched a little cheesy video, you get the introduction, and you all got to experience pair programming after doing some setup with your Maven repositories or your GitHub repositories and all of that. Next week, we're going to get an introduction to project 4, which is the REST API. Brand new project. You're going to be starting over with a new code base that is very different from your command line. So I recommend that everybody come to the first part of the class. And then if you'd like to experience more pair programming, we'll do that. We'll also have everybody who wasn't able to make it tonight join us. So you'll have an opportunity to pair most likely with somebody else on a different programming kata. Okay, a couple questions. Yes, about what to do next. So yes, there should be a quiz on D2L now that'll ask you a couple of questions, which is your write-up. Right, it'll ask you about who did you pair with, so make sure you remember that. What was the repository? And then also, hey, what was your experience like? And so then it's mainly qualitative. Are we allowed to continue pairing or working on this joint repo? Absolutely. If you want to spend some time outside of class working on it, that sounds totally fine. Oh, it says available July 15th. I will change that. Let me just spend a minute doing that. Yeah, because why not? I don't know why I didn't let you do that now. July 15th is next week. Yeah, that's not a good call on my part. Let me see if I can fix that. So just hold on a minute while I log in again. Ooh, super slow. Wonder what's going on there. or maybe not. So I will take care of this. Oh, there we go. Reflections on pair programming. Let me edit it. I will open it up. Oh yeah, I only had it open for 1 week. That was a mistake. Restrictions, super slow. Delete that and has start date. Okay. So that should be open now along with quiz 3. I will also make sure, see here, July 29th. That's probably not right. I'll also make sure that the mob programming quiz or mob programming assessment starts on the 22nd. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you all once again for a good evening. Good work, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. We've got more of the same next week if you'd like to partake. In the meantime, feel free to reach out in Slack with your questions about the projects. Remember the cones are coming up too. Make sure to stay on top of those because, you know, as I think you're seeing, Project 2 is just a little bit more difficult than Project 1, and Project 3 also will offer some challenges of its own. Have a great evening, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you later.
Good night. Thank you.
Right.